Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Mind Your Nest. I'm your host, Jennifer Rosen, and I have a gorgeous person here as my guest today. Her name is Heidi Friedman, and she is the principal of Friedman Elder Law and Estate Planning. And she came in today wearing this amazing outfit, but even more so amazing shoes. So
it's all about the shoes.
Oh my goodness, it is. And it just so happens that what I'm wearing really kind of blends in with what Heidi's wearing. So for those of you that are listening, I'm sorry that you can't see what we look like today, but I think we took a couple really good pictures. So in any event, Heidi, I know a lot of attorneys. I have a brother who's an attorney who really focuses on mergers and acquisitions, and he has people in the office that do estate planning, my will and durable power of attorney and last rights and everything like that. We're all prepared in his office. Same with my kids. They're power of attorneys. But one of the things that I learned yesterday about you is really, number one, your dedication to the elder population, which for a long time I thought was really a niche, like a niche practice within the law. But I do know that obviously we're all aging and we're all going to possibly need an elder law attorney. So I think that's fantastic that there really is a specialization. It's almost kind of like a general practitioner as a doctor, and then you go to your specialist, like your allergist, your dermatologist, or whatever. The other thing, like I said, that I learned yesterday is really your dedication to the VA and that population. So I want us to get into it as well. So before we get into everything, can you just tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're from, how you got to where you're at?
So yeah, a little bit about me. I am a Floridian. Every time I say that, people are like, oh, there's not that many of you, but
Right.
I think there are more now because a lot of us have given birth to kids that are in Florida. But I am a true blue Floridian, born in North Miami Beach, raised in Jacksonville, Florida. I am the mother of two amazing boys. One is going to be 25 on the 14th of January, and the other one is 20. Two brothers. Both my brothers were in the armed service, and now I have a nephew in the armed service. So that is a little bit of a reason why I have gotten into the veterans.
Were your brothers older or younger?
I have an older brother and a younger brother.
Okay.
So, and then my nephew is in his 20s, and he's being deployed in January.
Wow.
For about, I think, like 6 months. So which is kind of funny. I'm going to be honest with you. When my older brother first went into the armed service in college, he was in the ROTC. My mother was like, no good Jewish boys go into the ROTC. But he's a lawyer now. So
Did he talk about like what the impetus was for him to go that route?
It's kind of funny. I remember at his college graduation, I remember standing up there giving the speech that was, I'm not surprised my older brother went into the Army, considering that when we were kids, he used to really make me and my little brother, scrub the floor with our toothbrushes. And, it didn't surprise me at all that he became, into the armed services. But I honestly, I don't know. I don't really know what the reason was. But he did, I have to be honest, my older brother's a very amazing person, and he sets a goal and he meets it beyond and over and above. So It's funny. I was telling him the other day how we were laughing because he was in the Panama War when the war was going on. And I had a friend who was sending her brother somewhere, some kind of big, huge, goodie bag because he was in the Army and stuff. And so I went around and I was like, oh, I need to do the same thing for my brother.
Exactly.
I don't know why. So I packed all this stuff and it was a care package.
Was it during the Jewish holiday?
I don't even remember, to be honest with you. I don't even know why I did it. But I packed all this stuff in a care package and I sent it to him. And he called me up and he's like, we have stores here. I was like, okay, well, she did it. I figured I was supposed to do it. Oh, that's something I was supposed to do. So we were laughing about that the other day, that I just was, I just jumped on the bandwagon.
Exactly.
I don't even remember what I sent him, but he was like, Are you kidding? We have a grocery store here.
That's so funny. So when he went to the ROTC, and I know very little about the military. I know there's Army, Navy, Air Force, and then the Marines.
Right.
Do you have to commit to one of those four? Is the ROTC a general, like one step before you specialize and say, oh, I want to go to the Army, I want to go to the Navy? Or is it a different process for each four factions?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you I don't know.
Okay.
I can only tell you that both my older brother went in under the ROTC. And I know that when you come out from college going through the ROTC, you come out as an officer.
Okay.
Whereas my little brother went straight from high school. And then my older brother was more of an officer. My nephew, my older brother's son, Ben, followed in his footsteps and went into the ROTC, graduated from FSU in the ROTC, and then is now an officer.
Wow.
So it's a much different jump when you go through college and you go through that program. And they both were in the Army. So all three of them were in the Army, so I'm not really sure. The veterans that I work with are really your elder veterans.
Okay.
And
the 65 plus?
The 65 plus, right? Because I mostly work on a benefit called aid and attendance. And what that benefit is, it's a actual tax-free benefit that's paid to wartime veterans and or their surviving spouses. It's one of the few benefits that will be for the surviving spouses as well, to help pay for long-term care. It's not service-connected, so there is a difference between having a disability pension and having an aid and attendance pension.
Okay.
So service-connected is I see people still in their 70s and 80s that do have service-connected disabilities, and they get ranked based on their percentage of disability.
Wow.
And that's a disability that's connected to their service. The aid and attendance benefit is not service-connected. It has nothing to do with the fact that you're suffering this as a result of your service.
Interesting. So is that part of it more administrative for people that didn't see combat?
No, it makes no difference whether they saw combat or not.
Got it.
So there are certain war times that the VA has determined, or Congress has determined, these are the war times. So I gave you the card that card.
I just want everybody to know Heidi just had new business cards made, and we're going to put all the information in the show notes, but it is so fantastic. The front, obviously, is your business card with your information and where to contact you, but the back of it, when you flip it over, the highlight is VA eligible wartime periods, and it identifies the dates and each war that took place to help you identify where your clients fall in line.
Absolutely. So I get a lot of people who will say to me something like, oh, well, I was there, but I didn't see war.
Okay.
You don't have to see war in order to qualify for the aid and attendance benefit. You just have to meet the requirements, which is one, you have to have served during wartime, 90 days consecutively. One of those days has to be during one of those time periods. I mean, it could be the first day or the last day. It doesn't matter as long as it's one of those days. You have to medically need the program because it is a doctor-driven program. So basically that means that they need assistance with probably 2 of their ADLs, which is activities of daily living, bathing, dressing, toileting, transferring, or maybe they are suffering from dementia or Parkinson's or something. And then they have to meet the financial requirements. And that's a lot of where my practice steps in, is helping them meet the financial requirements. And one of the other things that I have just started is a new business to also be able to help them meet those financial requirements. Because one of the financial requirements is that the gross monthly income of the household. So if they're married, it's their husband and wife. If they're single, it's just them. The gross monthly income has to be outweighed by unreimbursed medical expenses.
Okay.
But think about that. If they're paying everything for unreimbursed medical expenses, what are they going to be able to use to do other things, other expenses like rent and food? So it's a little bit of an issue for some people.
So is there a baseline or a threshold that you have to meet, and then it goes down? Like it's like, okay, $5,000 a month and below, you're eligible? Or how do you, when you first start with a client, how do you determine their eligibility?
So the first thing we want to do is find out what are their assets.
Okay.
What's their income? That's the first thing we ask.
So then do you ask them to provide a tax return or investment accounts or, their financials?
Yeah, we actually ask them to provide us statements of all their assets.
Got it. Okay.
Certain assets are excluded. Your house, family vehicles are excluded. Prepaid burials, if they're irrevocable. So those are excluded. But pretty much everything else is included.
Okay.
There's a threshold right now of about $154,000 is how much they can have in assets. Clients who have too much in assets, we will do planning to be able to allow them to meet that requirement by implementing some government-approved planning strategies to get those dollars out of their name over to family members.
Got it.
So that they meet that asset limit. And then the other piece is what we call IVAP. It's income for VA purposes. And that income from VA purposes is their gross monthly income, subtracting all their unreimbursed medical expenses. So unreimbursed medical expenses like health insurance premiums or prescriptions or incontinence supplies. But a big one is their home health costs. Or if they're in an assisted living or even an independent living, we can deduct the entire cost of that facility for the month. So if they're in even an independent, it used to be in October 2018, the VA came out with all these new rules as a result of some unscrupulous actors that were acting in the aid and attendance world. So they came out with all these new rules, and one of the changes was to allow people to be able to deduct their entire independent living cost if we can show that it's necessary for them to be in that kind of a facility or that kind of community. And we do that with a doctor note.
So that is really a benefit to the veteran.
It's an absolute benefit to the veteran.
Terrific.
And then the way that the benefit is a monthly tax-free dollar. And the amount depends on whether it's a veteran alone, if it's a married veteran and the veteran is the one who is in need of care, or if it's a married veteran and the wife is in need of care, we can still get them benefits, or if it's just the surviving spouse.
I have a question. What about, nowadays you never know the children that are in the house, if they're still living under the roof. I know that 26 is a threshold for getting your child off your insurance. Are there any situations where there are children that also need coverage, or is that not a possibility?
So there actually is coverage now for children who have suffered certain disabilities. It's under I believe it's under the new PACT Act. But again, I don't deal with the children. There are a lot of benefits under the VA. They even offer home health care.
Right.
They offer disability. They offer medical. There is a lot that can be taken advantage of if you served as a veteran. We just happen to focus on this one particular benefit. So, but if anybody has any questions about what kind of benefits are out there for the VA, they really should contact the VA or go online and look, because there are things out there and they're brand new. There's some brand news. I mean, there are some caregiving ones. You can get paid as a caregiver for the VA for a veteran. So it's really important to go through and look at those.
One of the questions I wanted to ask regarding the list of expenses that come off the top, what about over-the-counter medications or any other supplies? You had mentioned home health supplies, but what about the other miscellaneous over-the-counter medications or anything that could possibly fall into that umbrella?
So technically, yes, but they have to be reoccurring.
Okay.
So you have to really be able to, you have to be able to really show the VA that they're reoccurring expenses.
On a monthly basis?
On a monthly basis.
And does it have to be tied to an illness or
No.
an ailment? Okay.
No, you just have to show two different things. So the veteran or the surviving spouse has to show that they need assistance. Again, with one or usually we like to see two of their ADLs, or they have some kind of dementia or specific, aging disease, and that they have unreimbursed medical expenses that are outweighing their gross monthly income.
Okay. How do you vet your clients? And once you vet them, do you find that they have full understanding of the VA benefits and what they believe they're entitled to? Or do some of them know a little bit and then you help them open up their eyes to, well, you have all these other benefits too, and I'm going to help you?
So it depends. I will tell you, I do a lot of presentations, and I will sit in a room of, 30, 40, 50 seniors, and I will do a full-blown presentation, because not only do I do VA benefits, I also help them with Medicaid, because Medicaid is a huge umbrella of different services.
Yep.
You have like food stamps, you have housing. My oldest son has special needs, so he has Medicaid insurance. But Medicaid also has 2 specific programs to help individuals who are 65 years and older or 100% disabled pay for long-term care. So I do both. And again, VA and Medicaid planning kind of go a little bit hand in hand, although I will be honest, there's not a significant amount of elder law attorneys who still do the VA planning. And one of the reasons
That's unbelievable.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why it's kind of interesting because when I first got into this practice back in 2011, we kind of looked at the VA benefits as almost like the redheaded stepchild. I hate to say it that way, but that's kind of what it was.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I kind of left that particular practice and went to just a practice that dealt mostly with estate planning that I realized how significant the VA benefit is. But the reason why prior to that, it's because you would be able to put in your application for VA for a veteran, and it could take 2 years before the VA would vacation. So a lot of times by that time,
is that just a bureaucracy?
it was just a bureaucracy
deficit?
thing. And I don't know if you remember, but there was many, many years ago, it's been many years now, there was a whole big blow up at the VA where people were finally saying, veterans are on wait lists and are dying in hospitals
yes,
and stuff.
I do.
Remember that? So that became a big overhaul of the whole Department of Veteran Affairs. And at that point, we started to see our applications getting approved a lot faster. And now I would say the approval rate for your typical person, and I'm going to tell you why, that I'm a little bit different, is probably still about 5 months. You submit the application, it goes into this quote unquote black hole. You can call the veterans, the VA, to try to get a status on it. You might sit on the phone for an hour to an hour and a half. By the time somebody gets on the phone to give you the status of your application, they may not give you any information.
Right.
And if you don't like what they say, you hang up the phone, you call an hour later, and you're going to get a different answer.
That's what you had mentioned yesterday at the breakfast.
So the difference with me now is that what I've done, I'm a VA accredited attorney, but I've taken it a step further. And that step further is I got what they call VBMS access. And basically what that does is it allows me to go directly on the VA site, their system. And every application that I do now, I can literally see every day what's going on with that application. So if there's an issue, if they're going to send something that says we need additional documentation, I now no longer have to wait for the VA to send it to my client, which, by the way, is always later than what they tell you. They say,
sure.
give it to us, by December 20th, and they've sent it to them, so they get it on the 18th.
Yeah.
I no longer have to wait for that. I can look right on the system.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, so our applications get approved a lot quicker.
Because you're able to see what's missing and help expedite it and
Absolutely.
say, we need these 3 more pieces of information.
Or if there's an issue or they're calculating something wrong, we can stop it right in their tracks.
How much documentation do you need to start the application?
So the application is only one part of the whole application process. You have the application, and then you have to add all the other pieces to that application, such as there is, a doctor form. There is a form that says, you have to list out what is your unreimbursed medical expenses. Then you have to add on it, your bank statement. Oh, one of the other big pieces is, and this will just go to show you how a little bit crazy the VA is, and I love them, but it is a little crazy, is that you have to submit what they call your DD-214.
Okay.
Your DD-214 is your discharge paper. The interesting thing is, though, if I have a client that doesn't have one, I will be honest, most of my old veterans, they carry it, they have it. But if I have a surviving spouse that doesn't have her husband's DD-214 discharge papers, I literally have to request the VA to get it for me. They send it back. Now, there was a huge fire, so a lot of those documents are missing.
Goodness.
They'll send me back a letter saying, hey, we don't have it because there was a big fire. And then I have to turn around and submit that same document with my application, which is a little bit crazy if you think about it. So we have to wait for them to send me it so that then I can turn around and submit it.
So is that piece of the process a validation that you actually served?
Yes. Okay. Yes. So you have to submit that with your application.
And is there any other documentation or a badge or a medal or anything or their number that can substantiate that if they don't have that document?
If they don't have that document, you can find it with their social security number, their date of birth, and their name.
Okay.
Again, it can take sometimes the VA a few weeks 3 to 4 weeks. We know how to expedite that process, but for them to just send back the form that says, hey, it was burnt in a fire, and then we turn around and submit it. But because I've been doing this for so long, we know how to expedite that practice, that piece of it.
Okay, so that's really what starts the whole process off.
What starts my process off is I get a client, or usually I get a family member who's calling me, whether it's the wife, whether it's the children, calling me saying, this is what's happening with my parent. They're now in the hospital, or they're in assisted living. They're running out of money. A lot of times I will tell you the truth that my phone will ring off the hook starting in January. Why? Because this is the time when kids are going to see their parents.
Right.
Before this, they might be talking to them on the phone. I'm guilty of this myself. Mm-hmm. I always say I'm the shoemaker's kid without shoes. I mean, my father, who passed in June, when he fell and he got sick and I ran to Jacksonville in May, I had no idea all the sickness and all the illnesses my father was suffering. I would talk to my dad every day and be like, I'm fine. Everything's great. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until he got sick that I realized that my dad had all kinds of things that I didn't know.
Right. You saw his big, thick medical file.
Right. And also, even when I went home to see him in April, and I was like, you don't look so good.
Right. Exactly.
The 10-minute phone call I have with him to say, hey, how are you doing? And he's doing great. Mm-hmm. I did not realize it until I went to see him. So we see a lot of that happening.
It makes a big difference,
It does.
What you say over the phone versus in person.
Like all of a sudden the kids go home and they see the piles of bills that are laying on the dining room, or dad's not doing as great as mom claims he's doing,
right?
Whatnot.
Right.
So that's usually what starts our practice. Is we get a phone call. In my intake sheet, I ask if they're wartime veterans, if they are or they aren't, if they've served. I always ask, okay, tell me what the dates are, just in case, because it's amazing how many people don't realize that their parent actually served during a wartime. They don't know. They'll say, well, he didn't see combat. I get that all the time.
Oh, right.
You don't have to see combat.
Right. They think he's automatically disqualified.
Right. And so we get the DD-214, or we get the information, and then we start from there. And we figure out what's the best benefits for this person.
And from beginning to end with this, just example of a client calling you, how long does that whole process take once you pick up the phone?
Oh, well.
And obviously it depends on what documentation they may or may not have,
right,
and where the pieces may be with the family, right?
I can tell you that for the most part, most of my clients receive benefits, whether it's through the Medicaid and VA, or just Medicaid or just VA, with probably about 6 months of seeing us, if not sooner, we get the benefits. Now, the good thing about the VA aid and attendance benefits is once the application is approved, no matter how long it took, they get the retro payments.
Oh, I was just going to ask that.
Yeah,
that's
they
fantastic.
do. They get the retro payments.
And does it retro back to the date of the application?
It actually retros back to the date of what we call the intent to file. Oh. So as soon as we're retained by a wartime veteran, the first thing we do is we send out an intent to file.
Okay.
So that saves that date. Now, it might take another 3 to 4 months before we're actually able to submit the application, because we got to get the medical expenses, we've got to get the finances. We might have to do some planning to reduce their assets. They might be needing additional care. We've got to get the doctor to sign a form. We need to get, if they're sitting in a facility or community, we need the community to sign a form. So it can take some time to gather all that. We got to get the DD-214. Yep. But as soon as we submit the application, once it's approved, then it gets dated back to that intent to file, not the date of submission. Now, one thing I do tell my clients is that if you die during the time that we submit the application and then we get approved, they get nothing. So they have to stay alive until approval. So I usually get a lot of chuckles from that. They're always like, gosh. Okay, I'm like, just stay alive till approval.
Okay, so what if their condition completely deteriorates? Dementia, Alzheimer's, to where they don't have capacity anymore.
Right.
And let's just hypothetically say they don't have their last will and testament, they don't have their durable power of attorney, they don't have their advance directive in place, because I'm assuming that can happen.
Oh, yes, it can happen. And that's why those documents are so important to have, especially your durable power of attorney.
Yeah.
And the durable power of attorney is what people don't understand is one of the most important documents anybody over the age of 18 should have.
I know.
And it needs to be done by a proper attorney.
Yes.
And when I say that, I don't mean the, injury attorney
Right.
or my ex-husband is a criminal. He's not the one to do that durable power of attorney because especially in the state of Florida, we have specific rules and regulations regarding your durable powers of attorney.
Okay, can you describe that? Because I recently had a client, he's 81, he's so cute, and he didn't have any of those. So we recently just got those. And can you just describe, let's just take Florida versus Illinois, because I'm from Illinois. Do you know what the specific differences are in that?
I don't because I practice only in Florida,
Right.
and those kind of documents are state specific.
Okay.
Now, the VA is federal. So VA is, their regulations and everything is federal. Medicaid is a federally funded program, but each state has its own rules and regulations. So I practice in Florida. So when I get clients that are maybe snowbirds, they'll ask me, what's the better state? So I will say, go check with an elder law attorney in your state, and I'll tell you what's Florida. I will tell you Florida is one of the best states to die in. I mean...
Nice to know. I'm
Yes,
glad I
it
moved
is.
here.
We have it's a great state to die in because we have no estate tax. We have no estate tax. Your homestead is a protected asset. So creditors can't get your homestead, not even Medicaid. Even if you're doing a Medicaid, if you get Medicaid and there's a payback, they can't get your home.
That's great.
Right. So whereas I can tell you in New York or New Jersey, they're very aggressive about going after
I'm sure Illinois is too. You know what? I have a quick question before you continue. Because I'm from Illinois. I've lived there 55 years. I moved here when I was 55. And all of my estate documents are from the state of Illinois.
Right.
So that just, like a light bulb just illuminated. Yeah. I'm wondering if I have to reach out to my brother and say, do I need to redo all of my estate documents? Because I'm a Florida resident now.
And I get that a lot too. And my response is always, you should, if you can.
Okay.
You should have the documents in the state. Now, if you do a durable power of attorney in most states, it is, reciprocal. You can use it in pretty much any state. I know in Florida we can. But it's usually better to at least talk to an attorney in your state to make sure there's nothing that's missing or that you don't have to redo them.
All right, so I will reach out to my
Reach
brother's
out to your
office.
brother,
I
yes.
will.
Is he a Florida attorney?
No, in Illinois.
Then you need to reach out to me.
Yeah. Okay,
so reach out to me and I'll help you with your documents.
We will talk.
Yeah, we'll talk after this.
episode.
Because you really should have Florida. And that's what I'm saying. You shouldn't have an Illinois attorney try to go on. And no, I'm not trying to be, downgrade anybody else.
Oh,
but,
no, I understand.
You shouldn't have an attorney in a different state, even if it's your brother or your whoever, to try to look up in Florida, pull up a document off the website and use that. Because I will tell you, for probably every 10 durable powers of attorney I see, maybe one is done correctly in the state of Florida.
Wow.
Yeah, and I've seen them even done by estate lawyers. I had a client come in the other day. Unfortunately, it was his sister who she had seen an estate lawyer, and he had all these documents, and she was now incapacitated. She had fallen into she had a stroke, and she didn't even know who she was anymore. And he brought me the durable power of attorney that she had done with this estate lawyer. There were name mistakes in there. They had not properly initialed everything. And I looked at him and I said, you can't do what you need to do for her because the durable power of attorney is not done correctly.
Oh my gosh.
And at that point, the only option is to go through a guardianship. And now you have to go through a whole guardianship in order to take care of her.
And that can take a while.
It can take a while. So it's really important to go see an attorney that absolutely knows what they're doing when they're talking about these documents.
So basically, the one that was drafted that she thought she executed correctly.
It didn't give him the right to do what we needed to do in order to get her what she. As a matter of fact, one of the things was she had a trust. And at the time she had done the trust, and this is the other thing, you really, these documents are not one and done.
Yeah,
you don't
I know.
You don't do them and then don't look at them for 20 years.
Yeah.
So at the time she had done her trust, I think they were not talking or they had gotten an argument or something many, many years ago, and they had made up and they were fine, but she never went and changed her trust. So her entire estate went to, her like dog care.
Oh, my goodness.
Right. And she never changed it. And even though now she had a close relationship with him and his children, because he didn't have a proper durable power of attorney to be able to do anything with the trust, guess what? Her entire estate was going to adopt a dog or something. One of those charities, which good for them, but not good for the family and probably not what she ultimately wanted.
So in a case like that, can you go in and can the family challenge? I mean,
not really, because technically they could try to challenge the trust, but there's no reason. There's nothing really to do. But she ultimately died. Even if you wanted to do a guardianship, she ultimately died too quickly.
It was too late.
Yeah, it was too late.
Gosh.
So it's really important to have those documents checked. Yeah. People just don't understand. I will sit in front of, I'll do presentations and ask people how many people have had their estate planning done. Mm-hmm. And a good number of them will raise their hands. And I'm like, keep your hand up if you've done, within the last 5 years. Yeah. And, like 90% of them will put their hands down. I'm like,
what's so interesting that we're talking about this, and I've mentioned this before with other guests on my show. So I consider myself fortunate. I grew up, my dad was an accountant, a businessman, and my older brother's an attorney. He's also an accountant, an underachiever. Ha, ha, ha. My younger brother's an accountant.
I like my older brother.
Right, exactly. And my mom she's a whippersnapper too. So, but our family, we talked about that. Right. And I know not every family does. So I kind of have always known, like, okay, at this point you need this document and let's do this and let's do that. And having gone through a divorce, like I do understand that whole process and staying connected to that as you go through life and as you get older. And now I'm 57, and unfortunately there are people that are passing away in their 50s. I mean, unfortunately, people pass away at any age. People suddenly pass away. My dad was fortunate. He planned the day that he passed. In any event, I do find it interesting how many people that I've come across in my life that unfortunately don't have that.
They don't.
And then sometimes it's usually, oh my God, I have to hurry up and get this done.
Right. I get that a lot
because
too.
A situation has happened that has forced me to now think about this.
Absolutely. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
That's what happens that's where a significant amount of my clients come in.
Yeah.
Because they're forced to do it due to something that's happened to their parent.
And it's under stress and duress and anxiety and overwhelm and fear.
And they're dealing with it. There's a different kind of emotion when you're the child and now you're caretaking for your parents.
Completely.
It's just, I like I said, I just did it with my father I was in Jacksonville for 8 weeks taking care of him until he passed. And it's definitely a different feeling when you are now the person in charge of your parents.
It is. I mean, it really is the sandwich generation. I find myself talking about that a lot, especially after just having seen my mom in Chicago after she fell. And she's very with it. All of her stuff is together and everything like that. Sometimes I feel like for my mom, for example, the stress and anxiety and the fear, she has it in a different way because she knows that she's at the last, 10% of her life. And so her fears are different. Fortunately, her fear is not like, I can't pay my bills or I can't pay my health insurance or, she doesn't have the fear that a lot of people do. And, she's very grateful for that. Some of those fears and overwhelm then fall to the child of the parent because sometimes it feels like we are the ones that have to execute and we are the ones that have to take action on behalf of our parent.
Well, because they don't want to go there. They don't want to think about it. I mean, I always kind of laugh. My ex-father-in-law, this is the kind of work I did. And I used to say to him, let me get your stuff together.
Right.
And he would say to me, well, if I do a will, I'm going to die. And I'd be like, yes, because everybody who has a will has died the next day.
Right. And you are going to die eventually.
You are going to die eventually,
right.
So you really should be prepared. There's an old saying, it's like, if you fail to plan to fail.
Yes.
And it's really true. I mean,
a plan without a plan is not a plan. I love that saying.
I love that saying too.
Uh-huh.
It's just that it's a hard topic to have with your parents.
Yes.
It's a very hard topic. I mean, like I said, shoemaker's kid without the shoes. I had a hard time having that conversation with my parents.
You really are wearing a fantastic pair of shoes.
It's all about the shoes. I always say it's about my shoes and my purses, my shoes and my purses.
That's right.
But it's really so important to approach your parents. A lot of times they're going to give you pushback. They are not going to want to tell you. You know what a lot of my clients come to me with is they have no idea what their finances are, what their parents' finances are.
Right, I know.
I just had a very good friend of mine, from years ago. She called me out of the blue. I hadn't talked to her in years. She called me out of the blue and she's like, my dad is in the hospital. And she's like, I had no idea about how little my parents had.
Oh my
I
goodness.
had no idea. And now we're obviously helping her get him on Medicaid because he's going into skilled nursing. But she's like, she had no clue. And she's like, I talk to my parents all the time. I had no idea of my parents' finances because a lot of times parents don't want to tell the kids.
Yeah. And
Or the kids don't want to hear.
Right, exactly. And I would say even when their parents go through, they're impaired or they're in the hospital or they're having a health issue, like it comes to mind, but it only comes to mind for that specific situation. It doesn't come to mind like the greater topic of maybe we should start having a conversation.
Right.
You know, and it's like a situation by situation basis, but it's only on the how's my mom doing? I went to visit her at the hospital. She's getting discharged, and you know all the like the personal part of an aging parent, and not so much the business side of the aging parent.
Right.
You know?
Right. I think also we are such a busy generation. I mean, we are dealing with our kids and our work and, you know, just the economy and everything that we kind of want to put it, okay, yeah, I talked to my parents and they're doing fine. I don't want to put another thing on my plate. And I completely understand that.
Yes.
But this is something that should go on the plate.
Oh, yeah. It's a necessary thing.
It is. It's definitely your protein. It's got to be on the plate.
I mean, really.
You know?
Yeah.
Because if you don't, the consequences are so significant that without having that plan, without having that discussion, without knowing what your parents don't have, if they're planned, if they're properly set up, you're looking at dealing not only with the emotional toll of something happening to them, but now the financial toll.
Oh, completely. I mean, and the physical part is eventually going to happen. You know,
it is.
Nobody escapes death, and some people pass beautifully.
Right.
And, you know, with birds flying in the sky and everything's okay. And, you know, it's a joyous celebration of life and everything. And then we all go on and, you know, we take our grief with us. The other side is the other side where it is grief. And then it is this complete kind of like traumatic situation because now you're learning all of these things and you don't have the person around anymore to help you go through it and understand. And for some people that don't have that acumen, you know, that don't know how to read documents or that's not in their wheelhouse, as they say, they're confused and then they panic.
Right.
Which is not a good place to be in.
Yeah.
Especially while you're grieving the loss of a parent.
I always tell my clients that I can't take away the emotional part.
Right.
The emotional part of dealing with what's going on with your parent. I mean, it's emotional. You were going to go through a roller coaster. I took care of my mom before she died about 5 years ago, and then I just did it again with my father.
I'm sorry that you're an orphan.
It's kind of funny that people say that. That's a hard word for me because I don't feel like I'm an orphan. I had, great parents, but I get it. I totally get it. People say that to me all the time. But, I had amazing parents.
Yep.
But I will tell you.
I agree with that too.
The experience with both of them was night and day. Night and day. I mean, my mother was, I love you, and we cried, and we knew it was coming because she had ovarian cancer. With my father literally sat there and watched TV for, 12 of the 24 hours. It was a very different experience.
Yep.
Let me just say it that way. So when you're dealing with that emotional part, it's hard to then pile on that, well, now what? How am I going to pay for his bills? How am I going to pay for his care? How am I going to pay for...
And how am I going to pay for the funeral?
Right. Well, hopefully they did a prepaid burial.
Yep.
That's one of the important things that we tell our clients because it also is a spend down for both VA and Medicaid.
Try not to have your funeral on a Sunday. Just word to the wise. My dad's funeral was on a Sunday, and we're Jewish, and it was the most expensive day.
Is
and
it?
I mean, I'm like, seriously, Dad? Like, really? We
Really?
talked about it beforehand.
Yeah, your father had to go out on the most expensive day.
He didn't care. He's like, that's
Let me tell you
how
what.
it is.
I think the reason why you should do prepaid burials is because, burial and funerals are expensive as it
Yes.
is. I mean, it's really expensive to do that. So luckily my parents did because when my mother died, I was so emotional. I was very close to my mother. I was so emotional. I was ready to put her in the Cinderella glass casket,
The mausoleum.
Like everything that she needed.
Yes.
I would have put everybody into debt just to take care of my mom. And she had already picked out everything and already paid for everything. So I didn't have that because that is one of the things that you're doing. Now, of course, when I pre-plan mine, I am going to have the Cinderella.
You are?
Yeah, yeah. Not only that, I want a phone in there and I want some water just in case I get thirsty.
So a couple of things. So when my dad was passing, we talked about everything. I asked him if he was afraid to die, what he wanted to wear, for the funeral, who he wanted his pallbearers to be. I still have 2 voicemails from him with the list of the pallbearers. I mean, we just talked about everything. And one of the conversations I had with my dad towards the end, I'm like, Dad, I heard of this great thing. I heard like instead of getting buried and paying, for you to be, taking up land, we can cremate you and we can turn your ashes into black diamonds.
I saw that.
I'm like, Dad, like, wouldn't they be fantastic? I mean, think of it.
I'll wear you.
Think of the money you're saving, and I'd be wearing you every day, and I'd make something beautiful, and it would be fantastic, and you'd be closer to my heart. He's like, I'm not being turned into jewelry. I'm being buried
I've heard that too.
in this box,
Right.
and that's how we're doing it. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I tried.
You tried.
Yeah, I did.
Listen, I think if that option was around or if I had known about that option, my mother definitely would have. And she would have been, make sure I'm a big diamond.
Exactly.
That would have been my mother.
Pear, by the way, pear is my favorite shape. So I was never a big believer in cremation. I mean, I know, being Jewish, that's kind of like against Judaism, but I do find that it is somewhat of a cost savings.
Oh, it's a significant cost savings.
Yes. And my grandma still got cremated. And when my grandpa died, she was, he had the urn in his break front. You remember those humongous break fronts? Oh, my goodness. So she was there, until my grandpa passed. And then when he got buried, and then she was right on top of him. And my mom wants to be cremated too. And I'm like, I want to be cremated. Like, I don't live in Illinois anymore. I'm in Florida. And I just, like, when I'm in Chicago, I go visit my dad. I love it. It just brings me peace and happiness and joy, to see his name there. I don't know. That'll be a conversation for another time.
That will be. But it's so funny because both my parents are now buried in Jacksonville. And I just have no desire to go there. It's a weird.
Yeah,
I
know.
carry my mom and dad with me. I carry them with me everywhere.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I know that it does give people peace to go to the cemetery and sit there and talk to them. But I talk to my mom probably every day. In my heart. So it's such a personal choice.
I wanted to switch into talking about Medicaid for a minute.
Yes.
I know a little bit about Medicaid. I mean, I do, from what my little understanding is, it's an income-based insurance for lower-income people. Right?
No.
Okay, so what is it?
No. Okay, so again, Medicaid is federally funded program, state-run. It's a huge umbrella of different programs.
Okay. For my listeners, I'm sorry. I should have just asked Heidi what is Medicaid?
That's okay.
Okay.
No, that's good, though, because it goes to show that even extremely intelligent people do not have an understanding of what Medicaid is. I get a lot of people who will say, oh, Medicaid's just for the poor. Well, that's true. There are programs out there for people who need to meet certain requirements. There's food stamps. We call it SNAP now in Florida. There's housing. Like I said, I have a son with special needs. He gets Medicaid insurance. Yes, those are all need-based programs. And Medicaid is a needs-based program, so you do have to meet financial requirements. But in order to qualify for the programs that we talk about, which is the Medicaid long-term care programs, there are 2 specific ones. One's called Home and Community-Based Waiver, and one's called ICP or Institutionalized Care Program. Let me tell you about the Institutionalized Care Program. If somebody goes into a nursing home, a skilled nursing home in the state of Florida, you are talking on an average anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 a month
I can't even imagine.
for a shared room.
Oh.
So the average cost of a skilled nursing facility in Florida is about $10,000. If you're down in South Florida, you could be paying up to $15,000 a month. That cost is exorbitant when you're talking about who's going into nursing homes. Who's going into nursing homes? Seniors.
Mm-hmm.
What income is senior? What are they living on? Social Security, maybe pensions, whatever savings they have. What if they're married? So you have a married couple, the husband or the wife goes into the skilled nursing facility. They're spending $10,000 to $15,000 a month. Maybe the wife didn't work that much.
Right.
So we see a lot of that. What Medicaid ICP, which is Institutionalized Care Program, does is it pays the entire cost of the nursing home minus that individual's gross monthly income.
Okay.
And if they're married, we can still get some of that income maybe diverted back to the community spouse, depending on the community spouse's income. Like I said, it is needs-based, so they cannot have more than $2,000 worth of assets in their name. They can own a home.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. They can own a vehicle. They can, again, own prepaid burials that are
They
irrevocable.
cannot?
They can. They can.
Okay.
Home, prepaid burials, and vehicles are all excluded assets.
Does the home have to be paid off, or can it have a mortgage on it?
No, as a matter of fact, the home can have a mortgage on it. It just has to be their home, but there is an equity limit of about $700, and I think it just went up. I don't know. Don't quote me on it. It's like $746,000 of equity.
Okay.
So if you have a home,
So it's not based off the mortgage payment?
no, it has nothing to do with the mortgage
Okay.
payment. It has to do with the value of the equity in the home.
Got it.
Most of my clients have homes that are in the $300,000 to $500,000 range. If they have one that's worth more than that, that's worth more, and they have too much in equity, sometimes we can do something like a reverse mortgage or something like that to reduce the equity. But for the most part, their homes are excluded.
Okay.
There is an income base. It's right now an income cap in the state of Florida. An individual cannot have more than $2,829 in gross monthly income. But even if they have more than that, we can still do planning to get somebody qualified and approved for these programs.
Okay.
So what I do as an elder law attorney is I use government-approved planning strategies to be able to reduce people's assets and reduce their income, quote unquote, in order to allow them to qualify for the programs. Because the program, the ICP program in the state of Florida, is incredibly financially significant. People think that Medicare is going to pay for their nursing home.
Right.
It does not. It pays for them while they're in rehab in the nursing home.
Yes.
But as soon as they're no longer rehabilitatable or they've reached their peak and now Medicare's not paying anymore, now they're transferring to a skilled nursing facility. That's at a private pay. Medicare doesn't pay for that.
Right.
You're paying out of pocket for that. So the only program that really does pay for that is the ICP program under Medicaid.
Wow.
And it saves people anywhere. I mean, I have clients that have gone into skilled nursing facilities that cost, $15,000, and they're only paying their gross monthly income of about $2,000. So we're saving them $13,000. Now, the big thing that I get is a lot of people say, well, I'm not going into a Medicaid nursing home. I'm not going into a nursing home at all, but I'm certainly not going into a Medicaid one. And that's not what it is. It's a nursing home that accepts Medicaid. And most of the nursing homes in the state of Florida do accept Medicaid.
Do they have a certain percentage that they have to?
So interestingly enough, when you are building a nursing home, or pretty much I think any medical, you have to do what's called a certificate of need, and that you have to apply for it. It's got to be in a particular thing. It's a whole process. And in that certificate of need, they usually do state, okay, we're going to make 80% private beds and 20% Medicaid. If you go to a nursing home that has filled up their quote-unquote quota under their Medicaid, and they might tell you there's a wait list for that bed. But the truth of the matter is if you go under private and then you have to qualify and get approved for Medicaid, they can't kick you out. So it's a little trick of the trade that we used to do. We used to tell people, don't tell them you're going on Medicaid. Go in there, start paying private. Within there, we'll flip the switch, we'll get you Medicaid, and you can stay in there.
Interesting. Okay.
But it is needs-based. So you do have to use some kind of, if you have more than $2,000 in assets and you have more than $2,829 in gross monthly income, you do have to do some planning, which is what we do. What I find amazing is I'll get people who will say to me, well, is what you do legal?
Right.
I love that. That's my
Yes.
favorite question. And I always say, well, listen, I don't look good in black and white stripes, and orange is definitely not my new black.
Yes.
So yes, everything I do is legal.
Yep.
And then I get the people that say, don't you feel bad about what you're doing? And I'm like, no, I don't. When you pay taxes, you go to a CPA or you take whatever the government allows you to take in order to keep money in your pocket. Well, I
Right.
do the same thing.
Yep.
Right. I allow family because at the end of the day, the government doesn't pay for everything.
Yes.
So if your parent spends down all their money down to $2,000, they have nothing left, and the government's not paying for everything. Where are you supposed to get the money from?
Right.
So what we do is we take the parents' money and we're able to transfer it to children or family members or trusted people and allow that individual to be able to qualify for Medicaid.
Okay, so people, I'm sure, would ask, well, where does the subsidy come from?
The subsidy for
The paying for, the difference between what they can afford, or is the amount just lowered based on all the work that you do on behalf of your client?
So, yes. So if I have a client that comes to me, so for example, I have a client who came to me, husband and wife, second marriage.
Mm-hmm.
They had only been married less than, I think, 6 months by the time she got diagnosed with dementia, and she went downhill quickly. He had millions, I will be honest. And I don't do this for most people who have millions, but they were married very short period of time. And, he was paying at the time for her nursing home. She came in the marriage with not a lot. He was paying approximately $18,000 to $20,000 a month because he was paying for the nursing home and he was paying for private aid for her. So $20,000 a month, I don't care how much money you have, it's a significant cost.
Yes.
So he came to me and we were able to get her qualified for Medicaid. We protected his assets. Again, second marriage.
Mm-hmm.
We were able to protect his assets and get her qualified. And that cost, he continued to pay for the full-time aid. So that was hit on him. But the cost of the nursing home went down about $8,000 to $10,000 a month.
Okay, so it's a real-time reduction.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not, I didn't mean to misspeak or say subsidy.
No. Yeah, I just wasn't understanding what you were asking. But yeah,
Okay.
it's real time.
So it's a real-time, here's...
absolutely.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense.
You go into a nursing home that costs $10,000. You get qualified for ICP benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Your gross monthly income is your Social Security of $1,800. You're now paying, instead of $10,000, you're paying $1,600 for that same exact care that you're receiving.
Okay, and I'm assuming that all of this is confidential. It's like back of the house stuff that none of the caregivers or any of the staff are aware of, who's Medicaid and who's...
Absolutely
They
not.
don't put a star on the room?
No, they don't put a star. They don't say, Medicaid. They don't put a red, what is that? A scarlet letter on you or anything.
Something like that. Yeah.
You can be laying in the bed next to somebody who's paying privately $10,000 to $12,000 a month. Paying privately, you're paying your gross monthly income, which is like maybe $2,000, $2,100, and you're going to get the same exact care. The same nurse is going to come in, same whatever's going to come in. It makes no difference.
Yeah.
The staff doesn't know.
And to be honest, truth be told, it doesn't really matter because it's really nobody's business.
It's nobody's business.
Yeah, it's very private.
But if you have a community spouse, now they are allowed to have a certain amount additional dollars. They're allowed to have about $145,000, and their income can be unlimited. So that's also planning we can do. But think about it. If you have a husband and wife, husband's in the nursing home, he's getting nursing home care. Is $145,000 really enough money for some woman to live on, it's not a lot of money.
Yeah.
So if we're able to protect more of those dollars, so that the family has money to be able to pay for additional things. At the end of the day, money buys better care.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I would say that it is so hard to see and know people that struggle, that are really struggling, and that come across your path or, clients, and having empathy and being a sincere, authentic person and understanding and really engaging with your clients and having compassion for them. Those are some of the most important skills you can have, especially with not only the elder, the senior population, but also the people that have less than. I mean, it really is something that has definitely been a part of who I am for many, many years. And I think as I've gotten older and moved to Florida, you see a lot more older people, and working with people that are older. You hear the stories, you can see the suffering a little bit, you can sense the suffering, and sometimes you can get a sense of that. Sometimes, it reminds me of when I used to work for my dad, and I've said this numerous times, like it doesn't matter if your tax return shows a lot of zeros or your tax return shows a few zeros. A human being is a human being is a human being. So, we all deserve to have people that really care about us and want to help. I wanted to ask you, as we close, what was the impetus that really got you interested in working with the older population?
So interestingly enough, this was not what I was doing when I came out of law school. I was a lobbyist.
Look at you,
I
fancy.
did. I was fancy. I went to Tallahassee. I loved it. I represented
You were with the movers and the
university.
shakers.
I was. And that was back in the day when lobbying was a lot of fun.
I'm sure.
It was
You'll go to your grave with those stories.
I have some wonderful stories. I had a great time. And I gave birth to my first son. I think I've mentioned Jeremy, and he had a significant amount of special needs. Luckily, thank God, he's turning 25. He's amazing. I love it because he actually works at an assisted living facility at Aston Gardens, which they've taken him in. And
I love it.
He just had a holiday party, and it was fabulous. They all they love Jeremy. He's great. So, and
comes from a
Max
great
is
mom.
great. Max, my younger one, I have to say that too, is great too, because in case he ever hear this, I want to make sure I say them both that were great. So I literally, from the hospital, quit my job working with what I was doing. I was told he'll never walk, he'll never talk, he'll never function if he survives. And I spent literally the next 10 years rebuilding him. I call him my definite $6 million boy. And through that, I ended up going to work for Alpert Jewish Children and Family Services up in West Palm Beach. And one of the board members was a gentleman by the name of Scott Solkoff. He's an elder law attorney. And come to find out that Scott and I had gone to law school together, although I had to be honest with you, I thought he was older than I am. But okay, let's go.
Never mind.
Never mind. I was like, and he worked in this world. And by that time, I had gotten involved in the special needs world. I had new friends that all my friends now had kids with special needs, because it's an interesting dynamic when you have a child that has special needs. You no longer feel comfortable with your old friends that don't quite understand what you're going through.
I would imagine.
Yeah. It's, you're sitting there with your child with a feeding tube, and, when somebody's complaining that my son won't eat, all of his mushed bananas, and I'm throwing, food in a feeding tube, you just don't have that same kind of connection. So I was very lucky. I met some fabulous women. But I was starting to already do some legal work, quote unquote, for special needs. And while I loved my job at Alpert Jewish Children and Family Services, I missed being an attorney. I missed it. I missed everything about it. So Scott brought me in and showed me the ropes. I really thought I was going to go more into special needs, but I have to be honest, it was very challenging for me to do special needs. It's hard to charge a parent that's going through the same thing that you're going through. So I really, really had a hard time with it, although we do some special needs planning. I don't do a lot of it. It's not what I do. I send that out. And I just fell in love with what we did. I fell in love with meeting the clients and hearing their stories and stuff like that. So that's actually how I fell into this world.
I think it's wonderful. I really do.
Yeah, I love it.
And I think you're wonderful. And
thank you.
And I have to say, this was a really amazing conversation.
It was.
If I do say so myself. I've learned a lot, and I appreciate just you and what you do. And
well, thank you. I appreciate you too.
So, and
I've sent some clients to you, and
I'm meeting one
happy.
tomorrow.
Yes,
I'm going to Miami tomorrow.
That's awesome. I'm so excited because
same
I'm
with
glad
me.
to have somebody to be able to do that for people.
Okay, friends, you know the drill. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, don't forget, mind your nest.